Alrighty, we are live, and this is The Origin Story, an independent comic books podcast. And we will be spending most of our time here interviewing fellow Kickstarter comics creators. This time, I'm interviewing Chad Leduc, who I know you don't, though, which is why we're interviewing him, so that you can get to know our co-creator here a little better. I think I just heard a comment. I think somebody's actually here. Nope, they're not. All right. No, so do you want to just get... What's that?
I think it was just the update of you going live from...
okay. So then we might not actually have been live there when I said we were live.
It went live.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're live now anyway. All right. So do you just want to get into the questions and see how that goes? See how the formatting works and everything? Or do you want to update everybody on the Tardigrade Press thing, Sasquatch Comic, and how it's going? Like, there is a question further down the list about that, but we can get it out of the way now.
Start picking them off. I need to warm up a little.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So the first question, and I'm obviously going to be a little more natural with it henceforth, but because it's an actual list in front of me. What made you love comics? What was the thing that made you enthusiastic, whether it's childhood experience or whatever, something recently?
Well, I was always really attracted to the colorful images and the dynamic poses. I just really liked the illustrations. So,
and we're talking like childhood then, probably?
Yeah. I had a pretty vivid imagination, and they stimulated that just by watching and looking at them. And, there was something going on in my head. Like, I didn't really need to read the comics themselves. I could just sit there and stare at the pictures.
Yeah, that's fair.
As well, right?
Yeah, which I guess is why a lot of kids use comic books to actually learn how to read, because it's got all the imagery there, right? So it kind of explains what it is that's in the panels, et cetera, et cetera. All right, well, it goes right into the next question, which is, what was it that inspired you to become a comics creator?
I think since I was young, I always wanted to draw comics. But with, I guess, the attainability of future choices and goals and so on and so forth, it just didn't seem like it was viable or feasible destination.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was never sure as to what direction, because where we grew up, there wasn't a lot of talk about people producing and making comics.
There certainly was not.
Yeah, a lot of the artists were designers or illustrators, but they worked for usually larger companies producing ads for magazines about cars or parts. And
selling out basically really because they had to.
For sure. Yeah, it would have been probably a lot different had some of my influences coming or growing up, had they been comic book artists as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Towards the creative realms of the people that kind of guided me through my art career, or my art journey, rather.
I see. Yeah, all right. Sounds good. I know there's more to go into there, but we'll go into that later. Probably when you're more like a co-host than, the one being interviewed, right? Where you can interject and ask people questions, especially when we get artists on the air, because that's kind of your realm. I don't really know how any of that stuff works. All right. So even though we're brand new as a creative team, do you have any pointers for anybody who might be watching in replay who is considering going into doing what we just did or what we're currently working on, who might not have any guidance whatsoever? What would you tell them?
Well, myself and others included would be to spend more time drawing, exploring your different techniques, do a lot of life drawing, a lot of studying, practice perspective, and gestures and things like that. It's just basically an all-around refined skill to be a comic book artist. Like, for one, I didn't have to do illustrations that were more how would you say it, lifelike. I could have gone with a character style that was, I guess, a little bit more my own approach, because a lot of the illustrations that I've done in the past have been about distorting and manipulating size and proportion and doing things like that. Like that's kind of the realm that I was in before I shifted to actually creating a comic. But
though it kind of makes you wonder if that style would actually work well in a comic. You know, like I was listening to an interview with a fellow creator, somebody who's way outside of our realm. They were talking about picking up their first Mike Mignola book and how they didn't picture that comics could ever possibly look that way. So it's almost like those people who have the balls to just kind of go completely with their own style, regardless of what the industry standard is, are sort of the ones who end up setting that industry standard.
For sure. It's also taking and learning how to take my style, but represent it in a way that seems to be a little bit more suited towards comics. There are some
makes
other,
sense.
Yeah, there are some other ideas that I pitched to you before the Sasquatch comic idea. Mm-hmm. And that was based more on my specific style and a world that I had created, but not written. So, but had basically the gist of where I was going with the whole scenario. Obviously, it was a pretty not really thought about world, but I was developing the characters and I was developing the environments, and it was almost like a preliminary drawing to actually a final comic kind of thing.
Now, do you mean the one that we aren't talking about that had a little more of a juvenile element to it, or are we talking about the Sasquatch?
For sure, yeah. It was more like a preteen target.
Okay, yeah. Right.
And the whole concept was derived from where I had worked and what part I used to do, or what job I used to perform at that specific job as well. So I was inspired by those things. And just being, another thing that could go into this whole thing is just being inspired by everything that you do and just focus and be the best artist that you can be. And you know what? Keep it true to who you are and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Which actually kind of brings us into did I already ask you? I didn't, about your creative process from concept to completion. I didn't, right? We just kind of started going into it there unintentionally.
Yeah, it kind of the questions fall into other questions, right? And other answers.
Absolutely.
But with my creative process usually is formulated sometimes by just drawing, just kind of freeing and emptying my mind and opening up that creative channel and just letting it kind of stream through me. And usually an idea is developed sometimes even from a very simple sketch. And
so do you mean like you just put your pencil to a page and just see where it takes you?
For sure. Like sometimes a lot of artists start with warm-ups, and that's a big thing, to just get a rhythm and a flow, to get your mind and your body all synced and working as one. And when that happens, usually that's when ideas start to formulate. And it seems the more ideas that you're working with and the more ideas that are formulating, the smoother it starts to come out, the smoother it starts to flow, and you end up with something or an idea, and then it just develops from that. It feeds itself.
Yeah, right. Like there's a part of the brain, I forget which one it is, but you have to exercise that part of the brain in order to keep it, doing what it has to do. I guess it's just like any other exercise, really.
Yeah, for sure. I almost describe it as being like a form of meditation. When you find that flow and you're in that specific zone, it's almost like an alpha state where you're going. And you'd be surprised because you can lose all concept of time and space and
I know all about that. Yeah. It's
So
not even like the same type of creative process, but I know exactly what you mean. Like, where the hell did those 3 hours go?
for sure.
All right, so we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but what is the current project, and where are we with it?
The Sasquatch Klondike is the current project. Right now, issue 1 is fully complete in the black and white. There has been talks of other incarnations of this idea,
Which we're going to surprise you with later.
for sure.
Yeah.
Just like the variant cover that I just produced. And
yeah, which is super rad.
Yeah, it's definitely showing a development from the beginning of the project into its current state, and my evolution just in a short period of time from the beginning of the first page of Sasquatch Klondike of the first issue to, I think I'm 4 pages in now in the second issue.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, unless you've got other sketches I don't know about, but as far as completion goes, you've got 3, and then the 4th one is almost done. I
haven't dug into the 4th one yet. I've just been preoccupied with, well, we've been trying to get this going and that going, and we've been balancing and juggling a lot of balls at the same time here. So
yes, we certainly have. All right, so this one should probably be more like at the end, but we're asking where to find you, and I may as well just field that one, right? Because it is tardigrade press tardigradepress.ca. But it's under construction still. So is there any place that you would rather send people to check out your stuff specifically?
Well, the best place would be to hit the Facebook page, Led 76 Chad, or Led 76 Leduc or illustration. So
cool. All right, and we every episode we'll have the links to whatever the person says down below. So that goes for anybody if you're watching this in replay and you want to know how to find Led 76 illustration. There'll be a link down below. All right, so now the fun questions. There's actually one that I get to skip there because we already went over it. So, fun questions. If you could take a retreat or like a weekend vacation with any comics creator on any scope of it, whether it's publishing, writing, illustrating, in any capacity, whoever your favorite creator might be across any time span, by the way. So if you want to say Jack Kirby when he was 25 years old and you guys are going to go to, I don't know, Palm Beach or something for a weekend, what would you do? Who would the creator be and why?
Yeah, I would definitely pick Jack Kirby. I'm definitely inspired. Definitely inspired by how prolific he was as an illustrator. And so underappreciated by the industry itself, right? And
totally.
It just goes to show you the state of being and how things need to change and how the creators need the power to control their destiny, opposed to that control being held over them, right? The marionette kind of effect.
And not owning their own work as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to just, hang out with Jack Kirby in a place where we could just hang out and meditate and just chill and relax, and kind of like the old Kung Fu Panda, where you have like the master and the big fat panda. So
yeah, right.
Definitely fit into that realm. So
I haven't seen it, but I'm well familiar. Yeah. Or like you could be what's his name, Ralph Macchio, and he could be that other guy. That's Daniel-san, that guy.
Yeah, Mr. Miyagi.
Great, thank you. Can you tell it's been a while? All right, so next question is the same question, but it's a comic book character instead of a creator.
Yeah, I would think it would be really cool. Like, some of my favorite comic book characters would have to be Spider-Man and Batman, and they are 2 of my staples.
Okay.
Although I really got into like Moon Knight in my younger years, and the Punisher.
Good choice with the Moon Knight. I wouldn't want to hang out with Punisher, but that's just me.
Yeah, he's a little too edgy, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be
But Moon
definitely
Knight, totally, because he's like a partier. One of the iterations of his persona or whatever is like a total party animal, right?
Yeah, it's
I
very
think they call
similar.
him Playboy.
Yeah, like the whole Batman and Moon Knight, they're basically the same kind of character archetype,
Yeah,
right?
true. Yeah, yeah.
So Batman might be a little bit too dark and shady for my liking. You know,
Uh-huh.
could be a night that might actually transpire into something. You know, what
That
is
you
it?
don't want to remember.
Yeah, exactly. Like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah, right, exactly. What happens in Gotham stays in Gotham.
Yeah, I would think
Uh,
that hanging out with Spider-Man would probably be the pinnacle of, you know, and where to hang out. I don't know. I just
yeah.
think hanging out maybe in the high areas of New York, you know, letting
Yeah,
them
all right.
swing me around or something. If we could trade off powers or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right,
I,
that's a good one.
I've had some pretty wicked dreams where I was actually Spider-Man too.
Oh, really?
Around.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
Like lucid dreams, like I've only had a couple
yeah.
in my entire life, but one of them I was able to leap over tall buildings, but I wasn't able to fly. It was basically like the very first version of Superman, which is
Right.
weird because if you can do anything, why wouldn't you choose to fly instead of leap over tall buildings? But for some reason, that's just what I chose to do. I don't know.
So you were the human flop, right? You just dove off the buildings thinking you were going to fly and you just buried it.
I guess so, yeah. Except when I hit the ground, I would hit the ground with my feet and then just boing,
No,
just
nice.
off I go. Yeah. All right. So the next question, which is what, two from the end, is do you have anything else coming up other than the project you just talked about?
There's definitely things in the back of my mind. I'm currently working on a project right now where I'm going to be doing some work for a individual for a product line, and that's all Sasquatch related. Kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
cracked the
All right.
code on this Sasquatch community. There seems to be a lot of people that are looking for stuff. So
Well, yeah, I don't picture most of those people being artists. Like I've seen some really impressive like merchandise that people make, but I haven't seen anything that's just like a solid flat illustration where, like it has depth or anything like that. It's mostly just, like I have seen some decent sketches now that I mention it. Yeah, never mind. I take that back. It just doesn't seem like an artist's community, really.
Are we talking more about three-dimensional, like, future?
No, like people just drawing what they saw because obviously they didn't have a camera at the time or whatever. Just
Yeah,
people drawing pictures of Sasquatch.
for sure. Oh, I'm saying about me and the sculptural thing. Is that where you're trying to lead into, or?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, go for that.
Well,
If we're allowed to, if you want to talk about that now, like
for sure. Might as well drop it right now because we're probably going to post this on YouTube anyways, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, it's posting on YouTube as we speak, but we're going to put it over to Facebook after. And then later on, I'm going to figure out how to simulcast to both at the same time so that we'll be live on, I'm guessing, every other Saturday night or something. And it'll show up in both Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, or started to think of an idea of starting to produce actual sculptures based on some of these characters and producing sculptures that could be accessible to hobbyists and also 3D printers as well.
And probably to a lot of Sasquatch enthusiasts too. Like anybody who has a statue of Sasquatch is going to want one of yours as well because it's going to be like tip top and top notch stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I plan to hand sculpt the Sasquatch and then 3D scan it and produce it that way. So
yeah, I think that's going to be super rad.
I definitely could use that drink.
Oh yeah. It's not a drink, it's straight coffee because I'm on like 3 hours sleep because that's just how I live now.
Do you work tomorrow?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
But not until like 11. So I'm probably going to be up at 6 like usual. I'll be up in the middle of the night like 4 times. Then I'll be up at 6. And then I don't work until 11. So there's lots of time for me to do my whole relaxation thing.
Oh, for sure.
So this next question.
Sorry,
what were you going to say?
Yeah, there was another part to that question that I wanted to answer, but it totally slipped my mind. But go ahead, Johnny. Sorry.
Oh, all right. I wasn't sure if you remembered, and then yeah. So the next one might refresh it for you, and that is on the grander scheme of things. What would you consider your goal to be as an independent creator? So I'd imagine some of the people we interview are going to say something like, I want to work at Marvel, because they still haven't figured out that this is probably where they would rather be once they've, really dug in and started creating something that enough people are willing to buy that they can make a living doing it. Because I've heard that story enough times. But I just gave you one example of what someone might say. What would you say your ultimate goal is? What would be what you want more than anything with the industry?
I have a pretty clear vision in where I'd like to be, and that's to be working full time as an illustrator, whether it be doing regular comics like Sasquatch Comics on a regular basis, doing some other titles, working on some other projects, but also working with other creators and developing different storylines and different ideas and taking those to an independent market like the one that we're basically establishing right now.
Yeah. Cool.
That also goes to that question that I was thinking about too, is with where I'm heading in that as well. I've signed up for the Graphic Artist Guild.
Oh, right. Yeah. Explain that.
Well. So just getting a little bit more exposure and looking at avenues in that respect and getting out there illustration wise as well. And then working on some other children's books and looking at avenues like that as well. And also getting into the small aspects of plotting out storylines, and not necessarily the writing, but more of the conceptualizing of stories and working on, what I can see as being like a story, just kind of outlining it, doing like the good old Stan Lee thing where I outline a story.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, this is what we need. And I want this guy here, or here.
Isn't that basically how the creative process started with us? Was that you explained via text message what it was that you wanted to see in a comic book, and then I changed that around a bunch, but it ultimately was you just told me what you wanted, and then I sent something back saying, "Is this cool?" until we got it right. So, I mean, that is basically what they call the Marvel method, right? Except that normally it would be Stan Lee, he had people writing for him as well, right? It wasn't just him ranting at an artist and then him filling the words in. He had both, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He had he was just basically creating outlines to the stories and the plots and the arcs and then getting the artist and the other writers to, fill in the blanks, basically.
Yeah. All right. So last question here. I just changed the characters around so that it would have like a sort of last minute feel to it. So I don't know how I'm going to introduce this question to anybody else, because we talked about the actual original game, right? The Mary blank kill. Okay, I just said it basically.
Yeah, you got to give them Mary.
You got 10 seconds, but it's not actually going to be Mary blank kill. It's going to be, so out of these 3 characters, who would you have be the godparent to your children? The next one is, who would you frame for a crime that you actually committed? Life in prison. They're going away for good. And who would you go on a weekend bender with? Probably something you won't even remember because you're that messed up. Your 3 choices are Swamp Thing, Man Thing, and Cheetah from Wonder Woman fame.
Cheetah, yeah.
I'm giving you more than 10 seconds, though, because it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, and my brain's trying to process the 3 questions at the same time.
No,
Johnny.
exactly. I almost feel like I should have a board much like this one that I can just hold up and be like, so down this side it'll be what the options are for what you would have the person do, and then down this side is the characters.
I don't know, man.
So,
Swamp Thing was always a pretty decent character and individual. He just ran into the wrong shit at the wrong time. So that would be the
that's
Godfather.
true. Okay.
Quite a noble individual, I think, just stuck in a creature's body, right? Kind of like Beauty and the Beast, right? There was the same kind of things, storylines.
I'm changing my mind since this is like not an official podcast. Cheetah is no longer the third choice. It's going to be Poison Ivy instead, because all 3 of these characters are like huge eco-terrorist type people, right?
Yeah,
like not eco-terrorism with Swamp Thing so much, but
yeah. Wonder why I'm so itchy after that weekend of debauchery.
Well, there's the Bender. Like, I guess you could do that. Really, could you picture going out to a bar with Man Thing? Like,
there's so there was grandfather. What was the next one? Sorry.
So then there was, who would you frame for a crime that you committed and put them away for life? And who would you go on a weekend bender with?
Because I got a major bender against Poison Ivy and getting it in weird.
Do you?
Child.
Huh. Is there a backstory there that you want to explain?
Well, sometimes when you're camping, you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the stuff ends up in the wrong place, and yeah.
All right, yeah, that's fair. All right, so you put Poison Ivy away, and then you go on a weekend bender with Man Thing, where I guess you probably end up. Yeah, can he talk? Because I've only read the first 2 issues of that 70s run, and I remember there being like thought bubbles, but I don't think he verbally communicates with anybody. I know Swamp Thing can talk, but can Man Thing talk?
Maybe he communicates through gas bubbles too. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be, or psychically or something.
Man, you got to lay off that beer.
I think that right there is a great note to end on. So everybody, anybody watching who has managed to make it through the entire program at this point, go check out LED76 Illustration on Facebook. Also check out tardigradepress.ca, because by the time that you see this, that website will probably be up and running, at least in a minimal capacity. And then check out, I guess, Linktree, linktr.ee/Sasquatch comic. And that'll link you up with like everything for both Chad and myself. So I think we're going to do this bi-weekly, right? Starting next Saturday, because this past weekend was my weekend off.
Yeah, you're making the time schedule here.
Oh, okay. Well, I also, because of all the running around last minute to get this setup ready, I started thinking, and this is like for behind the scenes, anybody watching gets to see our creative process here. How would you feel about Daryl being me every other Saturday and me being me every other Saturday? So that Daryl Sawatsky is the interviewer, and then that way you get to do your illustrations on the one side of the screen every single Saturday, and I only host every other Saturday. Daryl hosts the other Saturday. Just a thought.
I probably live feed my tablet right into this live stream as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm kind of thinking, is that so that we got that visual on that side of the screen, and then we've got this person. We would be divided so that the interviewer is down here, the interviewee is up here, or whatever, so that there's something like a focal point, something worth watching other than just talking heads.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're definitely could stimulate some, and people like that as well, right? They like to see the process of how things are.
We got Matt McWilliam. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say his last name, but he just mentioned 3 minutes ago, it looks like an official podcast! Exclamation. I don't even know if I told him that we were going to do this. It probably just showed up in his feed, which is cool. Yeah, he's one of our followers in the Sasquatch universe thing. Or awesome. The comic book universe as a whole, I think. It's not specific to Sasquatch, but yeah.
Yeah. I'll make sure not to look so squatchy like next time.
Yeah, and I'll try to not be like totally exhausted, but I have no control over that anyway. So
I think I look more tired than you do.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe that's because I'm wired with the, that's my saving grace right there.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss briefly, or not?
Really? I think the big announcement of the developments that happened today and stuff, I think that'll come more like when we actually see that through to fruition, because like that is really just step one out of maybe a dozen steps to get us to where we need to be. So I don't know, maybe part way through that process, then I'll do the whole big announcement. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good, man.
All right. So this is and Matt McWilliams says yes to something. Thank you to our one audience member out there.
Do you have any questions for me, or being the creator of Sasquatch comic?
Do I have any questions for you?
No, our viewer.
Does Matt McWilliam?
Yeah.
Let's see if he gets one in on time. He did answer pretty quickly to that statement. So I don't know. We'll just chill out, see if he has anything to say.
I'm wearing, like a Sasquatch shirt just to start it out right. So
yes, you are. And I'm wearing a Las Vegas shirt to sort of go with that whole weekend bender with man thing. I guess. I don't know. I just picture Vegas. Or the fact that you said what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
All
right.
Sure.
Well, and Robert Little, MDHS. I am here too, Bay, he says. Well, thanks, Bay. Thanks for stopping in, but unfortunately you made it right at the last minute. And Comic Crack, somehow he showed up too, like very last minute. Thank you, Bob. So we both look beautiful. There? Oh, okay. Yeah, and yes, he is. So Matt McWilliam asks, what was your favorite thing to illustrate in the first edition? Like as in the probably the first draft more than anything.
Issue 1.
Yeah.
I think some of the favorite things were to just get around the characters themselves. But I think one of my favorite characters to illustrate in the first issue was the priest.
I agree.
He's the most prolific in the pages and one of the most frequent. A lot of the characters got redraws. This didn't really start with any sort of concept or character. It would have been a little bit better had I started with some character sheets. But character sheets for the amount of characters that you had in this first plot. It would have taken me like 2 to 3 months just to draw the characters. So I just had to start drawing.
That was really meant more as like the entire arc and not just that issue. So there are how many characters are there actually in the first issue? It's like 9.
I don't know. When you told me,
but even then,
there's going to be a spread and there's going to be like 14 characters in the spread, and I was like, "Are you serious?"
Right.
So,
yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so then, definitely doing character designs would have been pretty laborious. But I think with the priest, it seemed to me like you nailed it first try. Like that was the one character that you really didn't have to make any adjustments to.
Yeah, and the one character that I thought of for the development of the priest, and you know this and other people don't, is the priest from the movie Silver Bullet.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm surprised Bob isn't saying anything about all that, because he had some comments about because he's read the book. Like before its release, he had some things to say about that priest character as being like the thing that makes it a cliffhanger, which is sort of weird. You wouldn't think that the non-protagonist, plus he's not the villain either, but that one character who's really ambiguous would be the source of the cliffhanger that makes you want to go into issue number 2. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think he likes the character as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And my solution in the initial concept drawings of the spread with all those characters in it was just to plop a tree right in the middle of the crowd. So I had to change
it. It worked.
It did, but it just made a spread like, hey,
at the time,
a tree there. So
yeah. I mean, it looks better the way that it is, but it was totally an acceptable image. Like it didn't look like you had put it there just to mask the fact that you didn't have time to draw everybody else,
Yeah, and I was playing with a couple different styles. Like, I'm a big fan of Mike Mignola, and I like the way that he would simplify and block down and break his characters down into the simplest form. And I was really experimenting with that in this first book. Same with Frank Miller. I really wanted the first book to be a black and white, like, homage to black and whites. But I was really playing with how I could use black and whites more successfully. And as you know, the early inclinations of the actual book itself were way different and way blacker than
they were. Yeah.
Product. So I lightened up a little bit. So
all right. So Bob says visually intriguing, but that was it as far as new comments.
Nice.
I don't know. Are you ready to let this one drop?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as long as we got the questions answered and the people and the fans are happy.
I think so. And I mean, as we move along, because I gave this like 10 minutes. I put the thumbnail up in YouTube. 10 minutes we started broadcasting, so there was like no time for anybody to even be aware of it. So I'm surprised that we even had 3 people on. So, I mean, further on, we will have more viewer questions because we'll have more viewers to each one. Plus, as we bring in actual guests, we'll have those people reaching out to their people to say, hey, you should tune in. So, should be good.
Should possibly the future guest that we could line up here or not?
Yeah, let's do that. So, did we did we talk about so-and-so who may or may not be in the chat? Did we talk to him, or is that something that we were going to present?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, we still have to present it to him in that, but he was open to the idea of coming in. He just needed to know a time and a date, and if it worked with his schedule, then he would be more than flexible and willing to help us out and willing to just be a part of it as well. So
cool. So then, yeah, we may as well just talk about them by name then. So Casey Parsons, right? We can say that?
Correct.
So Casey Parsons, who some of you might know from the now infamous cover of Trump as a clown in, what was the name of that book again?
Haha.
I can't remember the title. It was an Image Comics book.
Yeah, haha.
It was what?
Haha.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Haha. Yeah.
I have it right here.
Instagram, like, yeah, you should if you can.
Here, give me one sec. It's like right here.
All right. And so since I'm doing this solo for a second, I think we also discussed having Andrew Tong, who did the variant for our first issue, as being one of the possible guests. Bob, I'm going to center you out here. Bob Little and Daryl Sawatsky, the creators of Fatal Charades, which it will eventually be coming out on our imprint, Tardigrade Press. So there's a total of 4 so far. I have also written a 10-page mini story for Kyler Merrill and Derek Crow's, what's the name? Fletcher Cross anthology. So I wrote one of the 10-page minis. I was thinking it would be cool to have one of them on if they're willing. What else? I finally got my copy of Ben Arrington's El Marbo book from Kickstarter in the mail. So even though he doesn't need the extra promotion, he might still appreciate the invitation anyway. So I don't know. Seems like a pretty affable guy. So there's, 6 to start, maybe. 3 of them are maybes. 2 of them are definite. We just don't know when.
Nice. Oh, somebody in the comments said they want to grab this actual. Oh, nice. Sweet. This is the one I got. Mine's signed by Casey. And he wrote a little. Here, let's see here. So you can see right there.
That's glorious. With the remark and everything.
Yeah, and then it's also signed there in the bottom corner. So it's pretty sweet because Casey and I went to school together and we did a work placement together. So we spent 3 years in the same classes and hanging out, and it was a fun time.
Yeah, cool. And he also wrote an advance review for our book too, as did Andrew Tong and Chris Runciman from Runciman Press here in London. So
that's cool. Pretty awesome. Andrew Tong will be an interesting person to interview. So
well, I've been looking at all of his art, and it is definitely it's out there, but it's definitely
here,
what's
grab
the
it.
word? It's precise too. It's
Oh,
weird,
right.
but it's precise.
Here we have an original.
Here we got an original tong here that
Oh.
was up on my wall, and
Yep.
this
That's
painting
what
to
I'm
me.
talking about.
Okay, so see
Yep.
this character down in the corner? I'm just gonna drop. Sorry, this is lasting a little bit longer than normal, but this little character down in the corner here, this creepy baby thing.
Uh,
All right, yeah, just put the camera down here. I got an assistant here, Vanna White, and so anyways, he did these sculptures, and what he would do is he would go to the thrift store and he'd pick up these dolls, and then he would basically mutilate these dolls by cutting them apart and sticking different heads on them, and then he would sculpt them with clay that would dry. So he had this one that was like a full-sized, like 5-year-old girl, but she had like an alien head.
And she was wearing a wedding dress.
Yeah, and she was wearing a wedding dress, and it was the creepiest
Oh, wow.
shit. And they had
Yeah.
like spiders and all this other stuff like right at the base. And he just needed a place to store them, so he brought them over to our house, stored them in the guest bedroom, and he had this other
Right.
baby that had like a spider crawling out of its body and bandages and like just creepy stuff, like the stuff that you'd see in the movie The Nun. And
Right.
so it's in the guest room, and Lindsay's brother comes out to visit us when we're living in Vancouver, and he had to sleep in the spare bedroom. He's like, there's no way in hell I'm going to sleep in this goddamn bedroom with these sculptures. They freak the living shit out of me. So get rid of them. So
Awesome.
I know I'm completely off topic, and
Well, it's really, you only have to be out of the room between 3 and 3:30. That's when they come alive, but otherwise you're completely safe, right?
for sure. But
Yeah.
like I said, he'll be an interesting individual to interview.
Yeah, it seems like it.
He's one of my mentors and good friend.
Cool.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, Comic Crack commented London, Ontario, question mark, question mark, question mark. Yes. I don't know when I mentioned that, but yes, London, Ontario here, and then Chad's over there in Brantford. And my battery, because I didn't plug in, is going to die in like 2 minutes.
All
so
right.
I think that's our indication that now is the time to call it quits.
He's pulling the battery trick, everyone.
No, for real. I don't know if you've heard that chime. That's the computer telling me we're done. So
That's good.
yeah.
I think we did a good one.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I guess everybody else will see you either on a weekly basis, Saturday nights at such and such a time, or maybe it'll be bi-weekly. I don't know. Depends on how exhausting it is, because each of these podcasts takes time to set up. It's going to take time to make a thumbnail, all that stuff. So I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go along.
Awesome. And thank you,
Cool.
fans.
Yeah, no doubt.
Making this
All right,
happen.
and we'll see more of you next time. Yeah. Okay, this is us signing off. Good night, folks.
All right, take it easy.